Welcome to the Jedi Ranger. I'm John Berry 555, and today I'm continuing my 10th anniversary reviews of Star Wars Rebels with Season 2, Episode 17, The Honorable Ones. This episode aired on DisneyXD 10 years ago on February 24th, back in 2016, which, like I said, it was 10 years ago. I'm saying that a lot for some reason, but anyhow, let's actually talk about this episode, which is a Zeb and Kallus episode. And this is actually a very important episode for setting up Kallus's future arc in Star Wars Rebels. So I will be talking about this review, or this episode I should say, with that in mind. So if you don't know, Kallus later on in Star Wars Rebels ends up joining the rebellion. And this episode is crucial for that, because one, it is when Zeb accidentally recruits him, but two, it also humanizes him, and also shows that, hey, he deep down could be a good guy if he just had maybe a better life experience and wasn't being manipulated by the Empire. Some of that is me reading more beyond what we see on screen and taking in what we know about how the Empire operates from other Star Wars media, but I think it is a valid way to look at Kallus in this moment, in those lights, because it helps paint that picture. But when we watched this episode, we had no idea. We just thought it was a neat episode where they wanted to make us learn a little bit more about one of the main antagonists, but that ultimately maybe he knows what's right, but he's still going to do the bad thing. And that's probably how a lot of us interpreted this episode when it aired 10 years ago. And also to just some more Zeb action as well. But the writers clearly knew where they were taking Kallus, I would say. Maybe not exactly, but they had that rough trajectory in mind. And they wrote this episode with this in mind. But let's actually talk about the episode itself. So, of course, we have the fact that we have to get them into the situation. So, they got some intelligence that there's an Imperial construction project on Geonosis. I wonder what that could be. We know what it is. We actually learn a bit more later on in a future episode where they go to Geonosis, where they actually do find that there is one Geonosian survivor. Yeah, that's right. They're not detecting any life signs, detecting any Geonosians on the planet with their sensors, or the Force, mind you. Though there is one we do know, but, one on a huge planet. Maybe I can excuse their sensors, but the Force, really? No, they probably had that. It's the Death Star that's being built, by the way, just so you know. But anyhow, the Geonosians are gone, and it's an Imperial trap led by Agent Kallus. And they do dispatch the trap, but Zeb and Kallus fight and end up in an escape pod, crash landing on one of Geonosian's moons, an ice moon no less. And Kallus's leg is broken, they have to work together to survive. So it's one of those episodes. Well, we obviously know why it is, but an episode that puts two enemies together and forces them to work together to survive. Granted, I would say Zeb does more of the physical work to survive, including throwing Kallus around a little bit to get him up to certain locations as they're climbing out of the ice hole that they crashed in, so that way their transponder can be better picked up. So there's that, and there's some bickering and all that. But this is something I want to really highlight. There's a line where Zeb tells Kallus that he could just dispatch him right then, they'll shoot him, and not have to worry again, but he wants to finish their fight, and he wants Kallus to heal so that way they can finish their fight honorably, can basically have a fair fight. And I think is very important for Kallus, because he had previously had a bad experience with a Assad mercenary working for Saw Gerrera. Well, there, you got a mercenary working for Saw Gerrera, no wonder it's a bad experience. But that Assad mercenary massacred Kallus's team, leaving only Kallus alive. So that gave him a very bad view. And he also has a bow rifle like Zeb, which he got during the Empire's massacre on Lasal, and the Sark warrior that he defeated gave him that bow rifle, and he never understood the significance of that until in this episode when Zeb told him. So through those speakings, for lack of a better term, Zeb does come to understand Kallus a bit better, but Kallus comes to understand the Saw better. His entire view of them was based off of one interaction with someone who is probably just an asshole. And that's exactly what the Empire wants. Take Star Wars Andor. Yeah, I'm bringing Star Wars Andor in Season 2. Dedra tells Director Krennic that they need to have rebels they can rely on to do the wrong thing. Well, wrong thing for the rebels, technically the wrong thing for the Empire, but because the Empire wants to make it the right thing. But basically, rebels who can do stuff that turns people against the rebels. And what did that Assad mercenary do? He made it so that way Kallus wouldn't have no positive opinion of the Assad, that he would ever get close to them to actually learn the truth about them, learn about the honorable warrior culture and things like that. And that's exactly what the Empire wants. That's exactly what any authoritarian or fascist regime wants. They want to other people, and a good way to other people is to highlight assholes, really, as examples of the group when they may not actually be that. And that's something we see a couple of times. We actually are seeing that right now in my own country, where one person does something bad, maybe, and then they use that to justify something worse happening to them, when it's nowhere near proportional. Yeah, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But that's the thing is, evil succeeds when they can paint the good guys as evil. Also, when good guys do nothing, there's also that too. But only in this episode, Kallus learns that the Assad were not what he saw from his prejudice, from his one bad example. And it starts getting him to question the entire thing. He never, until this episode, he probably never questioned why there were no more Geonosians on Geonosis. And Zeb says, dig into it, you might find something you don't like, basically. And that's actually the line, I think, where Zeb actually recruits Kallus, because Kallus is like, yeah, what did happen to them? I'm an ISB agent. I should know what happened to the Geonosians. I should look into it. But that's, I think, important from the doing the action thing, not from the emotional side. What actually got Kallus, as we see later on, to change his mind on the Empire to defect? It's how Zeb versus him were greeted upon the rescue. I forgot to mention they had to deal with some monsters down below, so they had to cooperate on that. But that's mine. That's just getting them to interact with each other. But no. Once they're up above, eventually the ghost picks up the transponder and comes to rescue Zeb. Zeb did offer to come to take Kallus with them, that they would treat him fairly and all that. Kallus declines. But most importantly, Kallus gets to rescue the ghost crew, welcoming Zeb back with open arms, joking, having fun, showing love and affection. Being friends and family with him. Meanwhile, eventually we see Kallus. Well, we don't even see Kallus being picked up, so it was probably shutter came down. They say, so, you're there? He boarded and they brought him up. And then he's walking through the hallways, limping. Clearly, he has not received proper medical attention yet. So there's that going on as well, though he could have always gone to the medical bay himself. But the thing is, they probably just gave him a pain stim or something like that and pushed him on his way. Most likely, because it's just a broken bone, it's a heel kind of deal. But no, clearly the Empire did not bring him to any med center or anything like that. So he's limping through the corridors of the destroyer, going back to his quarters. He bumps into Agent Constantine, Admiral Constantine, and he's like, in an upbeat way, said Admiral Constantine, like, hoping, thinking they're friends and all that. And then Constantine just like, Agent Kallus, very formal, matter of fact, and no conversation, good to see you, good to see you rescued, nice, nothing showing that they're actual friends, despite Kallus hoping for that. And then he goes to his quarters, sets that rock, that I forgot to mention, the generator heat power electric light source fails, and Zeb finds a rock that glows and produces heat to keep them alive. Kallus still has that on when he gets picked up, and he puts that on the shelf in his quarters, and he just sits on his bed thinking, and that's where the episode ends. And ultimately, sometime between now and a future episode is where we learn that Zeb has decided to betray the Empire and become a rebel agent. We still don't know that yet, but I think more than anything, him seeing that the rebels welcomed their friend, their compatriot back with open arms, with affection, friendship, and all that, and he just got cold dismissals, basically, for almost a cold dismissal, just polite, nothing showing that they care about him. That is, I think, what truly got Kallus to decide to defect, or at least follow through on on Zeb suggesting to look into what happened to the Geonosians and realize, oh crap, the Empire is now what I thought. Because his bad experience with one of the thought is what colored him to going after and following through on what the Empire did on Lasar. That on the Lasar homeworld, which is actually not the homeworld as we learned in Legend of the Lasar, but that's not the point. The point is he let that bad experience prejudice him and make him believe that he could follow the Empire's order and it was the right and just thing to do based off of that one bad experience. And he did talk about how the Empire wanted to make an example of the thought, implying that Kallus thought that his mission there was just to make an example of a few rebels and all the others would be fine. But the Empire took it to the next step, and because of his own prejudice, he didn't question it. But now he probably is, and maybe he'll do a little more deep digging into that, but also the Geonosians, and probably maybe some other stuff. But the fact is, Zeb introduces that, hey, something happened here, you don't know, you probably should know, and it's probably the Empire's fault. And we know it is the Empire's fault. And the other thing that you participated in, was it really justified? You should put it in all that. And then seeing the better reception, yeah, it's no wonder you're like, oh crap, the Empire is now what I thought it was. And because Zeb is an honorable man, like, he had opportunity, he had at least two, three, four, couple opportunities where he could have shot Zeb in the back in this episode, and he didn't. Part of it might be pragmatic, he knew he needed Zeb's help to survive, but also, too, like Zeb, yeah, they're rivals, and he wants their rivalry, their fight, to be fair. He's honorable. He's the kind of person that the Empire wants, because he can twist his own sense of honor into doing the evil thing. Almost like Cyril, but unlike Cyril, Kallus is an actual independent thinker. And when confronted with something that challenges his worldview, he may be a little defensive, but he doesn't retreat. Cyril in Star Wars Andor, he retreats back to what he knows and refuses to let himself learn. But Kallus is different. Honestly, I need to do a full video comparing these two characters because there are some similarities in them and how they're both manipulated, but also how but there are some differences because one is able to realize, oh yeah, the Empire is not right, and is able to move past, while Cyril can't. Again, this deserves a deeper dive in, and probably something that once we see more of Kallus in Rebels we can, but it is interesting that both have a very similar sense of honor, but one is able to actually understand his sense of honor at a deeper level and follow through and not essentially realize, oh crap, the Empire is manipulating my sense of honor, while one couldn't. Very interesting. But again, this episode is a really good episode. It was great learning more about Kallus. I've mentioned all that stuff already, but I really do want to emphasize, to really understand Kallus, you need to watch this episode. This episode and a later episode, Through Imperial Eyes, I think are some of the best ones for understanding who Kallus is, as we learn a lot about who he is. And that's why this episode is so great. It's also great seeing Zeb and Kallus as well. I mean, right when the ghost arrives to rescue Zeb, we see a shot and they've fallen asleep on each other's shoulders. I mean, come on. Because of, because the fan theory, fan fiction, fanship of them. Come on. This episode kind of cemented with them falling asleep on each other's shoulders and then acting like nothing happened. Come on. If that wasn't intentional, then someone really does not know how fans are when they get in the shipping mood. I'm just saying. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comment section down below. And I hope to see you next week when I discuss episode 18, Shroud of Darkness. Hope to see you then. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.